Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Improved Enterprise Productivity with Secure Digital Workspaces. My name is Andrew Kloman of AWS. I'll be your speaker and moderator for today's webinar, Improved Enterprise Productivity with Secure Digital Workspaces. I'd also like to introduce Matt Lall, Director of Global Strategic Alliances at Citrix, and Bill Klayman, CTO of NTM Technologies. The workplace is increasingly mobile. In the past, mobile workforce was the exception, and now it's the new normal. The shift not only has enabled end users to work from any device, anywhere, but also has enabled businesses a faster time to market, improved overall workforce productivity, and additional transparency to operational costs. A mobile workforce requires access to their applications and data from anywhere, on any connection, on any device, and not having to be tied down to the desk or connection to the data center. Hearing from our customers, meeting user demands can be difficult with on-premises VDI solutions or distributed workstations. These solutions lack agility, are complex, with time-consuming tasks to plan, configure, manage, and maintain. On-premise VDI solutions or distributed workstations also typically lack the ability to deliver high-performance applications to a globally distributed group of end users. They're also typically provisioned to meet peak capacity, lacking in elasticity, resulting in high upfront costs for systems that are not used for the majority of the time. AWS provides advantages to enterprise customers to meet these customer demands. The AWS global footprint makes it easier to deliver high-quality desktop experiences to a globally distributed base of users. AWS has a concept of a region, which is a physical location around the world where we cluster data centers. We call each group of logical data centers an availability zone. In AWS, or using AWS, customers can leverage 52 availability zones across 18 geographic regions worldwide, with an additional 4 regions announced, and we don't plan on stopping there. Each of our regions is architected with multiple availability zones to protect data durability, service availability, and they're even architected to be able to withstand the loss of physical infrastructure. This has allowed our regional services like DynamoDB and S3 to achieve high availability. That said, there are things you can do to architect for higher and higher availability inside of your deployment on AWS. AWS delivers the largest set of integrated cloud services among the cloud providers, with a total of over 125 services to date. As an example, in 2016, we launched 1,017 new services and features. In 2017, we launched an additional 1,430 new features and services. Customers benefit from this continual evolution and innovation and iteration because they get the newest, latest features or enhancements instantly. No need to upgrade, deploy, or migrate. The topic of security. Security will always be the top priority here at AWS. Examining the AWS cloud, you'll see that the same security isolations are employed as well as you'd find in a traditional data center. These include physical data security, separation of the network, isolation of the server hardware, and isolation of storage. Amazon and AWS are vigilant about customers' privacy and have implemented sophisticated technical and physical measures to prevent unauthorized access. We have a world-class team of security experts monitoring our systems 24/7 to protect customer content. One of the great things about the cloud is that AWS customers inherit all the best practices of AWS policies, architecture, operational processes built to satisfy the requirements of the most secure, sensitive customers. In addition, AWS partners with hundreds of tools. In addition, AWS partners offer hundreds of tools and features to help customers meet their security objectives, ranging from network security, configuration, management, access control, and data encryption. With that, Citrix, an AWS APN advanced tier technology partner, provides solutions to customers needing secure digital workspaces solutions on AWS. These solutions can help customers migrate desktop resources to AWS, simplify and accelerate the design, deployment, and management of desktop resources, and seamlessly scale to accommodate elastic user demand. The alliance between Citrix and AWS provides customers with faster performance and agility, smarter use of resources to dynamically scale to your required capacity, trusted and mature solutions to meet demanding corporate requirements, and a global footprint to deliver the best user experience. And with that, I'd like to reintroduce Matt Lahl to dive into the Citrix solution.
Well, thank you, Andrew. And hello, everyone. We have an awesome crowd today. Glad to see so much interest in the subject of Citrix and Amazon together. My name is Matt Lahl. I've been with Citrix now for almost 15 years, and I've spent most of the last decade working on our partnership with Amazon. And when I started, almost nothing we made was certified and supported to run on cloud. And now today, I'm proud to say that virtually everything we make is certified and supported on Amazon. And that happens through the good work that we've done as a team with our counterparts like Andrew, our engineering groups, and most importantly, the customers that have shown us that this is something that's important to them, and it's really helping to shape the future of Citrix. As a company, we Citrix have been around since the early to mid 90s. We are we were a startup in the era where mainframe computing was sunsetting and client server computing was on the rise. Along came the internet, and now comes along cloud computing. And along the way, we have amassed a fairly substantial install base of customers and users, somewhere on the order of 400,000 customers, somewhere on the order of 100 million users, serviced by around 8,000 Citrix employees, and a go-to-market partnership of around 10,000 companies whose job it is to go that last mile to really truly understand what it is your organization is trying to do and ensure that it's able to happen wherever you may be in hundreds of companies or hundreds of countries around the world. Now, we make a lot of technology, and we're going to talk about some products today, and we're going to talk about architectures and use some fairly technical words in some cases, but at the end of the day, everything we do comes together to make it possible for users to do what they need to do quickly, simply, and easily, right? Now, generally, the organization that's going to be interested in understanding what's a Citrix and how does it work and how do I deploy it, it's something of an IT-centric conversation, but our actual users who we build for is always considering that end user and the way they need to do their job and how IT needs to enable them to do their job simply, easily, and securely. Now, when you have 400,000 plus customers, you pretty much by definition are being used in every industry vertical, right? So people ask me, well, who should use Citrix? And the answer is almost everybody can get value from Citrix. It could be any industry type, it could be any company size from large to small. Big companies have their challenges that come from complexity and getting things rolled out in hundreds of countries. Small companies have challenges from lack of IT staff and not a whole lot of disciplined and controlled processes for making sure that everything is audited and governed and meets compliance requirements. So different organizations find us for different reasons. You can see some commonality though. So some examples here on this page, industries where we've become certainly ubiquitous, if not a de facto standard, in organizations that have extremely high regulatory burdens and very high requirements for compliance and security. Some organizations like manufacturing, and I could even go so far as to say as an extension of that, physical supply chain activities like construction or mining, where you're going to have users out in the field or working in environments that are not air conditioned, right? There's not always a friendly PC computing environment with air conditioning and a desk at the other end of that IT network. Or even in public sector, where you have either a high degree of publicly identifiable information or national security intelligence secrets, or a user base that's highly transient like students, which contain their own security profile challenges for juvenile behavior, et cetera. All of those different types of organizations get value. And at the end of the day, our job is to help make sure that the line of business, the people that are responsible for driving the income statement, are able to make decisions, pick the applications and solutions that they think are most effective for their people, and help IT get those apps and that data into the hands of the users where and when they need them, in a way that's easy for the user to consume and easy for IT to control and ensure security and compliance, while at the same time keeping IT costs and total cost of ownership under control as much as possible. Now, historically, the conversation around Citrix started out with the desktop computing group, right? We were most closely aligned to the people who thought about PCs. But the world of client server has shifted, right? The world of PCs is shifting. The user workforce is changing. More people work remote, More people bring their own devices. A device now can increasingly be something like a tablet with a touchscreen keyboard, a tablet with a little fold-open, case that has a keyboard on it. These things are miniature computers in their own right, but they don't run Windows. And when users demand to be mobile, to go around the world unencumbered by burdensome and heavy or clunky technology that's outmoded or underpowered, that creates challenges for how does IT keep up with the fact that these devices are proliferating and they're not all IT owned. At the same time, the applications that IT is delivering are changing, right? It used to be all in the corporate data center. It was mainframe or it was client server, and IT knew where the database sat and controlled everything. Now we have increasing SaaS, more users connecting to applications that are run by organizations that are outside of IT's control. And while those organizations are awesome and they themselves and their platforms may be secure, you don't own it, you don't operate it, and somehow the packets, the bits and bytes, the zeros and ones still need to get from that remote presence somewhere out on the internet to your user, wherever they may be in the world. And how do you make sure that that is secure? How do you own the device? How do you own every inch of the network between the device and the data source that you're trying to connect to? And so we now have taken the Citrix portfolio, all going on 30 years worth of development that we've done in a variety of enterprise grade products, and we're turning them into services, right? We're entering the cloud era and we're doing it with great partners like Amazon. And we can group our capabilities into two high-level areas: the Secure Digital Workspace and the Secure Digital Perimeter. So in that Secure Digital Workspace, we deal with application and desktop virtualization, and we deal with data management, particularly around end user files, the things you would put into an email and send, or the things you would store on your hard drive. On the network side, we have a very application aware and intelligent network that can help us really tell what's going on, even if the traffic isn't all being driven by the Citrix Secure Digital Workspace. So you have some situations where the user may have a locally installed application or a browser, and they may be doing things that are outside of the Citrix Workspace environment, but if they're connected through the Secure Digital Perimeter, you can still see it all. And the perimeter is more than just a VPN. It is a combination of encryption, hardware, and technology coupled with big data, right? The ability to collect millions, if not billions, of data points of information around user experience and behavior for your organization, or if desired from other organizations, where we can amalgamate learnings across the world and bring in that sort of artificial intelligence capability to sense and respond to threats in real time and help your IT administrator react and know what they should be paying attention to, because otherwise they just get buried in data and don't actually have quality information. And the platform by which we deliver these capabilities, the Secure Digital Workspace and the Secure Digital Perimeter, is Citrix Cloud. This is the future of Citrix. If you've heard about us in the past, you've heard some names, and some of them that are on this page may sound a little bit familiar, but our traditional packaging was a piece of software that you could download and install in your own data center, and you could operate, and our partner community could help you figure out how to use. And that comes with it capabilities and also challenges, right? There's a lot of complexity there. And in the cloud era, you, the customer, have told us that you really want simplicity, easier to deploy, more nimble, more agile. And so we're taking the pieces of the complexity that are highly standardized across customers, the control plane, if you will, the basic building blocks of the Citrix solutions are highly the same for everyone. So we're now running those as services, but yet still giving you, the customer, the ability to take complete control over where your applications and user data sit and reside, where you get your capacity. Citrix Cloud, think of it as like, it's a mashup. It's SaaS in combination with your own infrastructure, so you get to choose. And if you have on-premise infrastructure, yes, we can help you there, but increasingly, we're seeing customers choose Amazon. The great thing about Amazon as an environment, as Andrew alluded to earlier, is it's already built, right? So you don't have to order servers. You don't have to wait for things to get shipped. There's no supply chain lead time. There's no unboxing and rack and stack and wire and cable and all. You don't have to worry about that. If you want capacity, it's available now. Push a button, it boots. If you don't need it, turn it off. You don't pay for it. So it's an incredibly nimble environment that provides excellent performance benefits. And with Amazon's focus on security plus Citrix's focus on security, your hybrid environment or your cloud-based environment can be just as secure while being more flexible and more adaptable than your on-premise infrastructure. So when we talk about a Citrix Secure Digital Workspace, what is that? At the end of the day, it's the user experience. It's the apps that they're going to be typing in. It's the desktop with the start button that they're familiar for seeing. It gives them the anchor so that they know how to navigate to do their job. And it's the data that they need to create. Their PowerPoint files, their Word documents, their PDFs, their AutoCAD drawings, whatever that might be, coupled with their understanding of identity of self, right? When they log into the corporate network, they have a corporate identity, and that identity then can be shared with all applications and all data providers that they need to access through this workspace. And that includes the SaaS providers, right? So gone can be the days of needing to manage and maintain unique identities and credentials for every SaaS platform that your IT organization is supplying to your users. And the two core Citrix products that you'll hear us talk about that power this secure digital workspace are the Zen App Service and the Zen Desktop Service. And I'm going to spend just a moment on these. The Zen App Service, our original product from day number one, is a virtual application delivery platform where we take a Windows instance from Amazon and we connect multiple users to that instance, and each one feels like they own a Windows PC. They can't tell the difference. Yet at the same time, we can stack dozens or even hundreds of your users onto a single Amazon instance, and they're pretty inexpensive. Instances start at pennies per hour and they go up to a couple of bucks, but if you've got 200 or 300 users on a large Amazon instance at peak efficiency and fully loaded, you might be paying as little as a penny per user per hour. Now, in realistic, cloud scaling terms, you can't necessarily keep every server at 100% utilization 100% of the time, so you're going to probably end up paying a bit more than that, but it's still an incredibly cost-effective and very flexible way to make sure that you always have the right amount of capacity for your Citrix environment. Gone are the days when you had to figure out how many servers to buy before your project could go live, because you can change on the fly. Now, Zen Desktop is our platform for single user, single instance computing. Call it VDI as a common term. In that environment, your users can have a lot more flexibility. Zen App, centrally managed, multi-user, everything's locked down tight. Users have no administrative capability to add applications because it's a shared environment. They shouldn't. In Zen Desktop, you have the right and the privilege to grant them the ability to install their own applications. So if you have advanced knowledge workers that need to be able to add plugins to their apps, or developers that need to be able to write and compile code, and you want them doing that in a kernel that's separate and distinct from everyone else so they can't do damage or harm, VDI is a great solution. And Amazon has some excellent instance types designed specifically to be the right fit for a single user and a single PC. But regardless of which of those services and architectures you choose, the user experience is the same. Citrix Receiver is the starting point for the end user experience, and you can think of it like Adobe Reader. It's free. You can download and put it in as many places as you want. You can walk into an airport kiosk and navigate to the company's portal, and bam, you've got Citrix Receiver in front of you, and you can log in and do your job. You can work from your grandmom's house. You can work from your home office. You can work from your corporate environment. That software can be deployed anywhere it needs to be. And it has the ability to run on pretty much any form factor of device. So we support all the major operating systems out there. If you've got a Windows PC, a Mac, you've got a Linux workstation, Android, HTML5 browser-based environments, iOS, it's all supported. And increasingly, as I mentioned earlier, we see more and more people using tablets as replacements for desktops. We see people buying these really inexpensive little thin client devices. Now they run on Raspberry Pis powered by Linux. They cost less than $100, and you can put them in a FedEx and mail them to a remote worker, and he puts it on his desk, plugs it in, and bam, he's in the office. It's an incredibly effective way to create points of presence on any device over any network. Now, speaking of the network, networks are not easy, right? The speed of light is what the speed of light is. It's not going to get any faster. And in some environments, you're working over a network that's a long way from where you started. The corporate environment and the headquarters might be in the United States, and the user might be in Nairobi working on a mining operation. So how do you get from here to there? Sometimes it's low quality, low bandwidth terrestrial networks. Sometimes it's a satellite. And over the last 30 years, Citrix has worked out how to make sure that the applications and data that are securely kept in the data center can be remotely accessed by these users on these endpoints, right? So think of it almost, this isn't an analogy, this isn't exactly how it works, but we send the think of it as the pixels from the data center down to the end user device, and we capture back mouse movements, keyboard typing, audio, video input from the microphone or the camera, and we send it across the wire in a highly compressed, highly optimized way. And this is a complex protocol with a lot of sub-channels that allows us to provide service level assurance for the different types of traffic and make sure that we're moving the right packets in the right sequence. And because we have such a deep understanding in that protocol of the type of traffic, we're actually able to give you an awful lot of control. So when a user logs in, let's say he's based in the United States, he normally logs in LA. You saw him there this morning. He logged in, he authenticated himself. You gave him full and complete authority because he was on the corporate network. But then 3 hours later, he logs in from Nairobi, and he didn't have double factor authentication available, but he had the right user ID and password, so you let him in. Well, maybe you don't trust this particular individual so much. Maybe you want to limit the applications they're allowed to see. Maybe you want to turn off their ability to download and save files, right? To ensure that this seems a little suspicious. I'm going to be careful here. Let me restrict the capabilities of this particular user who is in XenApp or in XenDesktop simply because I've analyzed his profile and I think he's not quite what I would normally see out of this person. But what if that person at that endpoint in Nairobi is using a device and he's able to log into your network, but he's going around XenApp and XenDesktop? He's got a browser, but he's on the internet. What do you do? Well, that's where the secure digital perimeter comes back into play, right? So when that connectivity is established at the network layer, Citrix has the ability to read at the layer 4 through layer 7, the application-aware context layer. We're watching everything. We can open up the packets. We're terminating the SSL sessions in the NetScaler, so we can open the packets, help you analyze what's in those packets, and apply policies to ensure that people who should be able to access information get what they should get, and people who shouldn't see it don't get it. And when you suffer attacks like denial of service attacks and whatnot, that secure digital perimeter spots them, reacts to them, rebuffs them, and makes sure that the traffic that should be getting through still does get through. So it's a combination of technologies designed to make the network work better, software-defined WANs, compression, path routing optimization, IP packet frame size management. There's a lot of tips and tricks that make whatever capacity you do have accomplish more work, combined with security tools allowing you to sense and respond to what's going on in real time and routing the traffic accordingly. So when you take all of this and you look at it in the context of an Amazon-based environment, we've got one of Andrew's favorite slides here, which is sort of a map of the Amazon infrastructure globally. And you can see the yellow circles represent existing regions. The green circles represent the 4 regions that Andrew alluded to, which are coming soon. And in those circles are some numbers. That number describes the number of availability zones in that region. So here's the Amazon footprint. And the Citrix Cloud takes advantage of that footprint because it's already there and it lets you be productive quickly. Now, I mentioned availability zones. What is that? Why do you care? So let's take a look at an individual region. This could be any region, right? There's a couple of core concepts in play here. Each region, which represents sort of a geographic presence, is made up of availability zones. Those availability zones themselves are completely isolated. They're isolated at the power, network, fire suppression, air conditioning. It's all isolated so that if you have a challenge in one availability zone that it goes down or it goes up in smoke, you can actually be protected. In an environment with Citrix, normally we would say, build one Citrix place, build in some redundancies so that you've got, 2 of everything perhaps, and you're good to go. When you take it to the cloud, you don't have to do that so much because you have Amazon already providing the availability zone and you get more than one in a region. And they're tied together with an Amazon storage tier. There's more than one. The one we're referring to here is EBS or Elastic Block Store. That's where you boot your images from. The Citrix Cloud Connector is a single virtual machine. That's all you need to install into your Amazon VPC in order to turn your VPC into a Citrix resource location for Citrix Cloud. So it's a very, very simple provisioning concept for you as a Citrix Cloud user. Once you've got this up and running, let's say you have 1,000 users, you put 500 in one availability zone, put 500 in the other availability zone. They're tied together with inherently fault-tolerant and resilient data tier from EBS, and you've got essentially HA for free. You put a little bit global server load balancing in front of it. If one of them disappears, you simply boot a bit more capacity in the availability zone, and your users are right back in business. Many of them didn't even know you lost any capacity at all, and a couple that were affected, they're back in business and able to log in very quickly. So move the Citrix environment to an Amazon cloud-based platform, and you get high availability essentially for free. You also get the global footprint that I mentioned, right? So again, taking the concept of users connect into the Secure Digital Perimeter, the global server load balancing figures out where the user sits. It routes them to an Amazon region that is close to where the user sits, thereby reducing the effects of latency. And then you still have your availability zones and your intra-region HA capabilities. So now you've got global performance while maintaining your fault tolerant. And again, you're still, let's say you have 1,000 users. You're only paying for 1,000 users worth of capacity, and that global footprint and that global performance costs you nothing. You only pay for what you use after you use it. So when you kind of tie it all together and we talk about the Citrix Secure Digital Perimeter, you can see here that we have all these Amazon points of presence, and you can have some Citrix resource capacity for Citrix Cloud in those points of presence. Then you have your user population, many of whom are remote, and you can see them illustrated here with the small little pictures, the icons of a person, connecting into that environment through the Citrix NetScaler gateway for an encrypted tunnel that can encrypt all the way down to a secure container inside their mobile device or their PC. So very, very secure IT controls for what data goes to those endpoints and what happens if you need to wipe an endpoint, if a PC gets lost, if a tablet gets lost in an airport, you can securely ensure that that data is not going to end up in the wrong hands. In the case of the branch office locations, the square boxes with the windows you see here, you can have the SD-WAN technology bringing highly resilient and highly optimized network pipes all the way into every building that you have for a very dynamic, flexible, and affordable way to get that connectivity to the cloud. It runs on top of Amazon Direct Connect if you're using that in your larger locations. It can connect with Amazon VPC if you're a big user of that service. It can run on top of Amazon VPC peering for the traffic in between regions. But all along the way, it's providing that enterprise-grade network visibility, governance, security, control, single common control plane so that IT knows where every drop of data is at every moment, at every time. So to kind of wrap up my piece here, talk a little bit about one of the customer projects that I had an opportunity to work on recently. And unfortunately, I can't name the organization, but they are one of the world's largest financial institutions. And they process, well, I'll just put it as thousands of billions of dollars a year worth of financial clearing transactions. And they had a very large multi-thousand user Citrix environment running on premise for years. And as they looked at that environment and the costs associated with that environment, and they're getting ready to refresh their hardware and do all that typical enterprise-grade computing lifecycle management, they realized that their disaster recovery environment was large, expensive, and rarely used. And there had to be a better way. And so they looked at AWS and realized that they could actually create a hybrid Citrix landscape that encompassed some on-premise capacity and some on Amazon capacity. And that allowed them to have that burst capacity when a disaster were to strike to spin up all the Amazon infrastructure that they needed to power their Citrix landscape in only minutes. And one of the ways that they tested it and continue to test it and make sure that their hot landscape, if you will, is ready and to go on a moment's notice is they keep full-time production users in the cloud. And those users, they can't even tell where they sit, right? They see Citrix receiver. They don't know where the infrastructure is coming from. They don't need to know. What IT knows is that they have a very secure and very resilient Citrix platform, giving them all that tasty goodness for the user experience, while at the same time substantially reducing their costs for infrastructure by taking their DR location and only paying for it on Amazon if they really need it. And it's really this customer experience, these customer testimonials that keep me going and keep me working on trying to make these solutions better. And I love seeing it when these success stories come out. And I actually have my friend Bill from MTM on the line here, and he's going to talk to us a bit more about what he's seen in terms of customer traction and success with Amazon. Bill?
Great. Thank you so much, Matt, and welcome everybody. I hope you guys are just as excited as I am to talk about the power of the AWS cloud architecture and certainly Citrix as well. I'm Bill with MTM Technologies. I'm the CTO here. And we are definitely a big Citrix partner, and we're also an Amazon consulting partner as well. So just briefly, a little bit about us. Like I said, we are in the APN network. We've been doing this for more than 30 years, and we really love to focus on Global 2000 enterprise organizations and mid-sized customers. And really, our passion is a human-centric approach to help people understand technology, leverage the power of cloud, and utilize technology to do great things. We're a Citrix Platinum partner. We do managed infrastructure services, technical consulting, and a few other things. Multiple times award winner with different kinds of organizations, including, of course, with Citrix as well. Now, that being said, we created something very special because we absolutely want to help people, no pun intended, get their heads into the cloud. So we created something called Anywhere App, right? Helping organizations design a custom cloud workspace. But here's the kicker: without complexity, difficulty, or of course disruption. So these kinds of architectures can live on-prem, cloud-based, and certainly be hybrid as well. We create guided deployments, 360 security, because let's be honest, that's one of the most important things out there. No one wants to experience a breach. We simplify licensing, and of course, we create lifecycle support, day-to-day administration, remediation, and of course, maintenance. And all of this is fueled by the power of our partnership with, of course, Citrix and the AWS cloud architecture. Really gives us the capability to deliver that user experience. And Matt, you talked about it a little bit earlier, man, where these users, they're mobile. They're not sitting in cubicles. And that brings me to actual real-world use cases and studies. And by the way, we're going to have some time here for Q&A at the very end. And I know Andrew and Matt and I love an interactive audience. So please pop in some questions into the Q&A session here. And then we're going to be able to have a chance to talk about it. If you have a question about one of these customers I'm going to talk about, be happy to talk about what we did, how we architected the solution, where we leveraged AWS Cloud, and how we made the Citrix ecosystem work appropriately. So the first customer that we did, if you're in your kitchen right now, which would be a very interesting place to be viewing this webinar, you're probably going to have an appliance from these guys, and they are globally distributed. Now, they have this new mentality, well, I think a lot of people do, is that they have a cloud-first initiative, right? They're trying to phase out a lot of their physical infrastructure, and they're absolutely looking to empower their mobile users, leveraging a variety of different kinds of devices, everything from Chromebooks to traditional PCs and everything beyond. But the challenge was a legacy architecture, a limited ecosystem that was on-premise that simply wasn't conducive to the scale that the customer required and certainly the experience. So what do? We chose and helped them migrate to an AWS architecture that absolutely focused on performance demands and most of all, that human-centric people approach to make sure that they were consuming their resources most appropriately. We designed a custom infrastructure to support their applications, their portfolio, and really help them execute that migration. Through our own offering, that Anywhere App model that we talked about just a little bit earlier, we were able to leverage AWS to facilitate a powerful, secure experience. Now, here's the thing. These guys can scale. They can open up new locations, and they can absolutely support new kinds of user demands to allow their workforce organization across all divisions in their industry to do great things with different kinds of solutions. So this kind of customer saw great benefit of leveraging AWS, again, not just to move an environment into the cloud, but have a powerful delivery methodology with Citrix and the vast AWS cloud architecture that gave them the flexibility to scale and certainly gave them the performance architecture that they required as well. Now, this was a really, really fun one, a financial institution with a big national presence. Listen, these guys understand that if you go down, that is going to be exceedingly costly, right? You can't run a business in finance and FinServ on papers. So you need to actually have some kind of an infrastructure that can support you. So they wanted to create a disaster recovery architecture without incurring the expense of a physical infrastructure. Why have a data center sitting there cold if you may or may not have to use it? But listen, there's situations where you certainly want a DR environment up and ready very quickly. And we know that Citrix Cloud allows us to power this mission-critical architecture that runs in a variety of different kinds of environments. So what we did is we leveraged the AWS Cloud global presence to make the entire design and to establish the DR sites without actual overhead of a physical infrastructure. So we are able to run their most critical applications in the AWS environment in case of a disaster. Now, let me point something out to everybody. This is important. It's transparent to the user, right? We want to make sure that they have consistent access to their workloads. We want to make sure that even if there's a disaster or if there's an incident, they still have access into that environment and continue to be productive for the organization from first click. And the success of our own model, this anywhere app architecture, allowed us to migrate even more workloads to AWS. Multiple regions, a multifaceted deployment powered by the application and desktop delivery environment that is supported with Citrix. We were able to deliver a user experience that was always powerful and always transparent, even if a failover needs to happen. And that's a really, really important fact to understand. We're delivering applications and desktops seamlessly down to the user by leveraging AWS Cloud, various types of regions within that environment. And again, it was a great experience, and it was simple, and we were able to deploy it through a guided deployment methodology, our own cloud journey methodology. Now, this next one is really, really cool because this ticks off the box of all of that FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt that a lot of our customers face in the industry today. And so if you haven't been paying attention at all, I'm sure you haven't. This has been a very awesome webinar. This is the time to really, really make sure you're looking at the screen. So this customer specifically is a healthcare insurance organization with about roughly 2,000 users in the US area. Now, they had a desire to establish and create a hybrid cloud architecture that was being able to phase out a part of their physical infrastructure while still enable and deliver a compliant mobility architecture for healthcare workers and associates. Now, let me be perfectly clear here with everybody. We're talking PHI and HIPAA compliance. So if you're sitting here and you're in the healthcare field, maybe you're in pharmaceuticals, and you have worries of, hang on a second, I'm not really sure if I can move this into the cloud because I'm worried about HIPAA or PHI. Stop. Talk to really good people who have done this already, because you can absolutely do this today, and you can create powerful experiences while still staying compliant and secure. So we were able to use AWS Cloud coupled with Citrix, and we were able to meet workload performance demands, and we implemented this custom design infrastructure to better support their hybrid workloads. Again, the end user, it was transparent, the experience was powerful, and we never deprecated security. Now customers are moving their XenApp workstations into AWS, having great experiences, and now we're having more mobile users, more mobile healthcare associates leveraging this kind of architecture, and it's a new model which allows the customers to consume cloud and the workloads as certainly as they grow. So in these kinds of environments, if you're looking at this right now, know that working with compliance and security is not a challenge. Of course, we'll need to have a discussion. We'll need to create an architecture. We'll need to understand dependencies and where your data resides. But moving it into an AWS environment is absolutely a possibility. Plus, when you leverage the power of Citrix and the Citrix Cloud environment and how they deliver experiences with XenApp and even Zen Desktop, you really gain the ability to enhance the user experience, make them champions of your own IT environment, and absolutely improve their own computing experience. Remember what we talked about a little bit earlier. You're not just trying to deliver a technology. You're trying to create a people-centric approach so that every single individual in an organization isn't just using a piece of technology. They're excited to use it. It makes their life easier. It makes them more productive, and it makes them just do amazing things with the tools that they have in front of them, which benefit them and, of course, the organization as well. So we at MTM have had continued success with both Citrix Cloud, obviously, and the AWS Cloud environment because of the kinds of use cases we've been able to approach, the kinds of solutions we've been able to create. And the start begins with an architecture, a discussion. And from there, you really begin to understand the value of this type of ecosystem and where it can take your own organization. So I implore everybody, make sure you start the conversation today. We're ready to help you out. But the key factor is that we're designing this stuff today, and organizations are leveraging this for obviously user benefits and competitive benefits as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Andrew.
All right. Thanks, Bill and Matt, for all the great information. to learn more about the Citrix on AWS solutions, we do have a booth at Synergy, May 8th to the 16th in Anaheim, so come visit us out there. We also have an accelerator program for Citrix on AWS. Provides AWS credits, access to experts, getting started documentation. You can learn more about that at citrix.com/AWS. Feel free to email us at aws@citrix.com for more information around that program. And for MTM and for what Bill explained with his customer references there, go ahead and check out their website at mtm.com. So from that, we're going to go and now transition to our live Q&A. As a reminder, you'll be able to submit any written questions through the questions panel within the GoToWebinar application there. In the event that we're not able to answer any of your questions today, we'll be able to follow up with everyone individually via email. So let's go ahead and open that up and see if there's any questions. So there's a question. It sounds like only Windows 10 VDIs are currently supported. What are your plans for Linux and Mac OS VDIs? So with that, we actually, from an AWS perspective, can provide the server operating systems for VDI to run on. It's a very common scenario for the Windows applications to even run on a server operating system on AWS and be able to provide that out. From a perspective of Linux desktops, those are supported as well. And spent a little bit of time changing a little icon within this deck to actually include the little Linux tux within the desktop application grouping there. But yep, so Windows and Linux are supported. And from a Mac OS perspective, no plans on supporting that. I think there's some things on the Mac OS side, maybe a licensing perspective that would need to be sorted out from that side. But yep, today, Windows either server or workstation operating systems and Linux operating systems are supported on AWS. Another question here, how to get custom build or base image into AWS, or do you have to rebuild? So just as a perspective, I always suggest for people to create new images within AWS, or really anytime you have the availability to start fresh, it's always the best. But a lot of customers do request and want to make use of the base image that they may have already deployed, maybe on premises. And you can import that. So we have a process around that, and I can send that out to the person that requested that later on. But that's part of the AWS documentation to import those images. See. Another question. We have engineering apps that require high-performance workstations. Can you handle the likes of AutoCAD and other graphics-intensive applications? We sure can. We even have our G3 instance types, which provides the NVIDIA M60 GPUs. Pretty great high-performance GPU. You can use that in a VDI or in a XenApp kind of multiple users on one instance model. Provide licensing from NVIDIA to our users for that use case as well. So absolutely, from an AWS perspective, we support GPU, and from a Citrix perspective, the Citrix HDX 3D Pro definitely gives you the capability of having a great high-performance experience down to the end user.
Hey, Andrew, I see one about app layering, and I'd like to take that one. I get that question fairly frequently, actually. The question is app layering supported on AWS yet? And the answer is no, not yet. Slightly longer answer is app layering is an extreme priority for Citrix. We're very aware of the value it would create if we can have app layering handle images that contain the necessary componentry to be Amazon machine images. And while I can't say anything about release dates, just stay tuned. We're working on it.
And it looks like we may have time just for one more question then. There's actually a part two that I'd definitely like to respond back to, along with the question about the base image being imported into AWS. We absolutely support and have tools to export that image out of AWS as well, using, frankly, the same AWS import-export tools. You can deploy that with inside of AWS and then export that back out if that's needed for your environment there. You wouldn't have to rebuild doing that process. Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. We want to thank you very much for attending. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, everyone.
And Andrew, I'd like to take a moment to second that. Thank you, everybody, for your time. And as far as reaching out, I do see there was a couple of questions we don't have time to get through today. And I've already had people contact me on LinkedIn, which is awesome. I want to call out or repeat what Andrew said earlier, aws@citrix.com. It's a group box that comes to several of us that are responsible for solutions with Amazon. And if you need anything in the near term or long term, whatever it may be, keep that in your Rolodex. That's how you get to the people that know the most about Citrix and Amazon together. Thank you all for your time today.